Today on Adversity to Strength, I'm joined by Allicia Johnson Niles, an author whose story is as powerful as it is courageous. Alicia grew up in the shadow of her father's murder, a trauma that shaped her early years with fear, hypervigilance, and a deep belief that the man who took her father's life was still out there. Decades later, that fear turned into determination. Alicia faced the unimaginable, confronting her past, uncovering the truth about her father's murder, and finding a peace she once thought was impossible. In our conversation, she opens up about living with CPTSD, breaking free from people pleasing and abuse, and the healing power of connection and speaking out. Her upcoming memoir, Angel in Arlington, captures that journey, one of truth, resilience, and what she calls unlikely courage. This episode is a raw and deeply human reminder that even the darkest stories can lead to light, and that sharing our pain can be the very thing that helps us and others heal. Alicia, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And that intro is amazing. So thank you.
I'm pleased you like it.
I love
Take me
it.
back to the beginning. When did your story, where's your journey begin? When your story start?
Oh, let's see. Let me make it really obvious. When I was 2 years old. Um, so I guess I'll just start out like the main thing. Well, I don't think I'm going to go there. I think I'll just kind of share the story as we go along. Of course, the primary, I guess, antagonist is trauma and
Of
complex
course.
PTSD. And people
Yeah.
are like, it's not D, there's no disorder. I'm like, to me it is, because it's something that plagued me my whole life and I didn't know what it was until I was diagnosed with it officially when I was 35 years old.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just my journey through that, and also unlikely courage, where that stems from is, of course, as a therapist, I'm sure you've noticed children who or adults who grew up in trauma have
Yeah.
like insane amounts of anxiety. Like worst case
Yeah.
scenario. Yeah, that's I still live that, and I don't want to be like, oh, woe is me, this is hopeless. It's not, but it's just it's a physical thing. It's something that. So, but I grew up terrified, worried that somebody else was going to die. And I had this irrational fear that my dad's killer was at large. Just, it's like com deadly until proven safe. That's kind of how I live my life. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, if my mom had really understood that, if I understood that that's what it was, that that's what was going on in my little brain, because it started from before my very first memory, it's just been kind of how my brain has operated. Had she known,
Yeah.
she probably would have sought out therapy. She would have sought out, here, Alicia's got this incredibly high anxiety. What can we do to help it? Well, fast forward to 30, in my 30s, my 40s, finally got it. Finally got it figured out. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, yeah, that's called a trigger, and that's why I'm feeling this way. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So to answer your question, where it began, it was my very first memory. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm diagnosed with CPTSD through my childhood. So everything you're
oh wow.
saying, I'm totally familiar with there as well. So
Sorry.
yeah, it is what it is. And
Mhm.
like you said, you start recognizing that you've got CPTSD, the triggers, and then it's a case of managing it and working on it as best as you can.
Mhm.
So that's all you
Yeah.
can do there as well. So I'm guessing at the start, then you're growing up and these things affecting you, had no idea why.
I just thought I was a second class person. I thought there was something inherently wrong with me. Like I was afraid of stupid things that my friends are out there having fun without worrying about dying. Or that's a little bit dramatic, but still, like I just remember constantly being concerned about other people, about their safety, about my safety. Like worst case scenario was always kind of like, ooh, but what if something happens? I was
Yeah.
not super fun to be around, and I just, yeah, it's like I felt I was kind of jealous of my friends who could just be so carefree. But again, I didn't really realize that. It's just,
No. And all
yeah.
your responses as a therapist and from my own experiences are totally natural. It's your
Hmm.
body's way of reacting to keep you safe. On
Hmm.
hypervigilance, you're on high alert. Your brain can relate to something could happen. You could lose that person, even if it's irrational. Your brain just wants to protect you and keep you safe. So, uh, it must be quite a good feeling to understand now where it come from and to understand why your body's reacted in that way.
Hmm. and also to have the tools to combat it. I'm jumping way ahead. This is not going to be a linear story apparently as of right now, but like I didn't get married till I was 46, and um like it was so I at that point I had the therapy. I was in a really good place. All I ever wanted from the time I was a little teeny girl was to get married and have kids and white picket fence, that whole thing. And
Sure.
and like I'm religious, I'm a Christian, and I believe that things happen for a reason. Do I think that our all of our lives are completely dictated? No, but I think there's divine guidance in there. And so
Yeah.
I am very grateful. My husband is wonderful. I mean, if you would have told like 12-year-old Alicia that she was going to have to wait till she was 46, I don't know how she would have handled that. But
Yeah.
he's wonderful. But so anyway, my point is, I get married, I move during the pandemic, of course, can't do anything normal. Moved all the way across the country to this, I live in the South, and it's a completely different world than the West. I mean, it is quaint, it is beautiful, it is charming. Charming is the best way to describe the South in the United States. It's just pure charming. It's also little teeny towns and then like a huge city an hour or
Yeah.
2 hours away. Whereas out west, it's like, well, because it's so dry because of the desert, it's like cities are like in clusters. So it's like you can get anywhere you want to go in 10 minutes. And they've got like tons of gyms within like a 10, 15-minute drive or whatever. We're out here in the South, they're fat and happy, and they've got like one big nice gym 45 minutes away or a little teeny. Anyway, it's just different. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I moved out here. I got married during COVID, moved out to Georgia, and then my anxiety was like any little thing, like actually, you know what, that's exaggerating. I'm trying to think of it, but like I just started to be paranoid that either I or my husband were gonna die. And, of course, I'm getting older, I get little screenings. Um, my anxiety got a little bit worse, but like different screenings you get when you're getting older, like colonoscopy, things like that. I was always terrified that it was cancer or something like that, but it got really bad for a while. And then I was talking
Yeah.
to a mentor, a friend there's this organization called TAPS. It's Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. It's
Yeah.
for military families. So who have lost a loved one. So, and I know that they have a UK version of it. Like there's a chapter in the UK for Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. It's called TAPS.
Okay.
Um, so, but and I'll go into that a little bit later, but that organization mentally, emotionally, like it cut my anxiety in half multiple times. So I went
Yeah.
back to an event with my husband and I talked to this guy who's an expert in what he calls post-traumatic stress. And I explained, I'm
Yeah.
like, why am I terrified? What's going on? I'm happy. I finally got everything that I wanted. And he's just like, the triggers are going to come up. It's okay. You're normal. You've got your toolbox. Just know they're going to come up. And for me, probably one of the biggest things that has helped me has been validation and going, you're normal. You're not broken. It's okay. So and yeah, cut my anxiety in
Yeah.
half again.
Yeah.
And so
It's
yeah.
good when you get that reassurance.
Mhm. So
Yeah. What did they do to cut your anxiety then? What was that? Was that actual therapy, or was it they just taught meeting other people?
just talking to his name's Bob Delaney. He's an expert in so he was actually an undercover cop and he worked with the mafia years and years and years ago. And so he had post-traumatic stress big time. And then he ended up becoming a NBA ref. And so he speaks a lot at TAPS events. And so I got to know him. And I was just telling him, I'm like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what's been going on since I got married. And he's like, oh, that's totally normal. And also going to those different events, like they have different classes and things like that where you're allowed to
Yeah.
grieve your loved one who passed. And so, just being there, and it was just like 3 days of dedicated to healing. But yeah, that's pretty much what it was. But I think more than anything, what cut that anxiety in half is knowing, well, it's like when you're diagnosed with
Yeah.
something, you're like, oh, I've got this, what's going on? And they're like, oh, well, you're sick because of this and this and this, and this is how you fix it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I think that was the same thing where I'm like, why am I a psycho? Why am I making my husband's life miserable? Like, why am I always afraid? This isn't me. And he's just like, no, you're being triggered. Because I'm like, I thought I was better because I had EMDR and, I got to the point where I was better. And he's like, yeah, but it comes back sometimes and it's okay. So just that validation and knowing that I wasn't broken, I think I'm a perfectionist and I think that was part of it too.
Yeah.
So I think there's my anxiety and then there's perfectionist on top of it, which makes it rabid, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
mm,
Yeah, definitely. Whenever somebody wants to be a perfectionist, you're doomed to failure because it's impossible to achieve
mhm,
with perfection. And it makes sense because you've met somebody that you think the world of. You've got everything
mhm,
there, and your brain's going to
mhm.
be triggered to somebody could take this away. Oh my God! Now I've got a different set of problems there as well, and then it's a new one for you. To the
You
anxiety
cut out. You're cutting out.
or even deal with this there. So suddenly you're getting overwhelmed, the anxiety because your circumstance growing.
Okay. So no, you were just responding and I missed all of it. So,
Yeah. So what I was saying is that for yourself, meeting somebody that you really wanted to be with and getting married and you've got everything that you want is a new experience for you. And the thought of loss or losing anything there is going to give you that level of anxiety. And then the fact that your circumstances haven't changed, the
mhm,
anxiety is going to grow. It's trying to get you out of that. So it does make sense. It's great that you spoke to that guy that made a big difference to your anxiety.
mhm. Yeah, I think it's so critical to find your community and to find people who understand you and, not necessarily who have totally walked completely in your shoes, but um, to take it back to my first TAPS experience, it was so I started writing my book about 12 years ago and started doing a lot of research and things like that. And through like being online and finding people, I was connected with TAPS, and they have a national seminar in Washington, D.C. every Memorial Day weekend. And so I went back for my first one in, I think it was 2016. And I was just kind of embarrassed because it's like you see all these young widows who, little teeny kids. I'm like, okay, this is a nonprofit because they feed you, they roll out the red carpet, you pay for your hotel, you pay for your flight, but everything else is paid for. And I'm like, I need to volunteer. I'm here to help. My loss was over 40 years ago. So I didn't feel like I deserved it. But when I went up to the front desk, I'm like, okay, put me to work. You've heard of me. And they're like, yeah, we've heard of you. You're here to heal. I'm like, no, I'm here to help. They're like, no, you're here to heal. And they're like, you'll be surprised at how quickly you find people who understand you. I'm like, that's adorable because I'm a weirdo and, whatever. So I go and I pick up my little bag and my lanyard with my little ribbons. And the girl who's handing it to me, um, still, it was like, adult child. We were adult child, and then the branch of the military, which ours was the Navy. And so she had adult child and Navy. I'm like, oh, me too. And she's like, and she's a worker for TAPS, okay? And she's just like, yeah, but she's embarrassed. She's like, mine's a little bit different. I was so young when my dad died, and I don't really remember him. I'm like, it was crazy because it was like the same thing. And so going through that, part of it was facing my grief head on. I went into a homicide class. So sometimes they break it up into like cause of death
Yeah.
support groups. And I remember when I walked into the homicide support group and it was the lights were dim and it was like you could cut that nasty feeling with a knife. It was just dark. It was awful. You could feel everybody else's grief. And it was awful, but at the same time, we all
Yeah.
shared raw and real what it was like to be a homicide victim, so, have lose a loved one to homicide. And that talking to people who really got me, it was just like, "Well, oh my gosh, me too. Oh my gosh, I thought it was just me." And so there was that, and it's just that cut my anxiety in half because I found people who understood me, and they call it a family, which is exactly what it is. So I went back two more times after that
Yeah.
before I got married, and then I went back again. So it's anyway. That's why. I mean, I'm sure you know, like healing, peer-based support, peer-based mentoring, how important that is. I mean, it doesn't take the place of therapy, but I think it's an important piece. So,
Oh, it, I mean, one of the main areas that I deal in, I mean, I deal with loss, bereavement all of the time. That's
mhm,
one of the main areas I work in there as well. But one of the other main areas I work in, predominantly, I'd say three-quarters of my clients have been survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
mhm,
Um, it's just the area I end up specialising in, just because I had so many clients come to me for that. And obviously my own personal experiences, um, find that gives them relief is when they realize somebody understands them and it's not just them. Even though they know it's not just them, to hear that it's not just them and it's actually other people, it's just like a relief. It's like a relief. And no matter what they've been through, terrible things they should never have been through, the fact that they know that, you know, it's something that shouldn't have actually happened to him. It's not normal. He shouldn't have gone through that. Reassurance there as well. And if they do
mhm.
understands them,
100% it. Yeah, no, that's 100% right. Like, it's, you know, I was first got involved with TAPS with the military, and then I wanted to get more into like mainstream, like more, not just people who lost their loved ones through homicide or military or things like that. And actually, before that, I started to do a little bit of digging. So, just to kind of take that subject and turn it into another one to kind of backtrack. Um, I'm like, I'll backtrack and then I'll move forward if that's okay. So,
go for it.
okay, I'm like thinking through this. So, growing up, I carried this grief that I didn't know was grief. I didn't realize it was grief till I was in my 40s. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. Because, you know, I did my learning. I found people, resources, and things like that. But as we are talking about earlier, I was afraid of everything. My mom would leave the house. I would pray. I'd hold my breath and wait for her to come home. You know, it's almost like I felt like I tried to take control of the situation that I knew I didn't have control over, because I didn't want anybody else to die. Because good people that were close to die. I was
Yeah.
hyper aware of my mortality, which I think COVID did to a lot of people, in my opinion. Little kids, I think that because their anxiety, it seems like,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so growing up, um,
Yeah. Without a doubt.
yeah, I work with, I'm an enrollment counselor for an online high school diploma program, and as soon as COVID hit, I'm like, "Hey, oh, you act like I do. I'm sorry." But so anyway, as a child, I was like, people always say I was an old soul. My mom, so we're going to kind of I'm going to play the violin a little bit. And oh, these are the hard things that I went through as a result of my dad's murder. Um, they're being real here. So, you know, here I'm carrying this constant fear of losing somebody. Also, I'm looking at everybody else and going, you know, they didn't lose their dad. I must be doing something wrong. And so um, when I did a little bit of research about how egocentric little kids are, how anything good that happens, it happens because of them. Anything bad, it's because of them. I believe that I must have decided that I wasn't worthy of my dad, that I must have been the reason that God took my dad. And so I was constantly I was comparing myself to everybody. My mom's got a ton of family. I've got cousins that I adore, but I was constantly comparing my every move to my peers and of course coming up short. So I was a people pleaser. So that little people pleaser, let's
Yeah.
add mom gets married when I'm almost 6 years old to a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man. But still, you've got a child who is grieving who doesn't know it, with a mom who doesn't know it. And it gets a lot more complex. And then you add another family member who you're like, wait a minute, he's replacing somebody that I don't remember, but I still feel attached to that person. You take daddy's picture down. Yeah, my mom, I feel bad. My mom listens to these and she's just like, I'm sorry I took your dad's picture down. I'm like, you didn't know. Nobody knew. But I turned to food for comfort. I ended up being a fat kid. I was teased. It's like snowball. It's like one thing led to the other, which the biggest thing was becoming a people pleaser. And, it's you're never enough if you're trying to, like you said, it's if you're trying to be perfect, to be okay, you're never going to be enough. And that's how it was. It was this constant, vicious circle of me going, um, hello?
Hello.
All right.
Hello. It disappeared for a second. I've never had this before. I don't think I've ever had this before.
Good. So, so basically, I was a people pleaser, and I never saw myself as good enough. And that was a thought pattern that I carried. I mean, I still have to fight that. My brother, he was a baby when my dad was killed. He is a people pleaser. Like, that's one trait. I don't know if with your patients if you've noticed that, but it seems to be it's almost like I am a lowly second class person, therefore I have to make sure everybody else is taken care of to be worthy of any sort of anything good. So, um, but like with the overeating, I was teased for being fat. I didn't take care of myself, and yet I wondered why people didn't like me. So it's just like this vicious circle. And then I got a little bit older. I had my growth spurt. I went on a diet, eating disorders. So let's just like to label things that I went through bullying, eating disorders, um, like bad relationships, bad friendships, a little bit of sexual abuse when I got older. Um, like my dating life was an absolute train wreck. And so, people would always tell me things like, "Oh, but you're just too nice. There's something wrong with you." So it's just like this narrative that kept getting reinforced that there was something wrong with me, and I kept
Yeah.
showing people that there was something wrong with me. And yet it just I'm not trying to be like my life was horrible. It wasn't, but at the same time, like, man, if I can shorten the learning curve, if I can help any of these kids who have gone through trauma and be like, you know what, you're totally normal. It's you
Yeah.
can like yourself. It's okay to like yourself. So, some things that kind of helped along the way. Oh, go ahead.
No, you carry on.
Oh,
You carry
no, go
on.
ahead. Were you gonna say something?
No, all I'll say
Okay.
is that
So,
go on.
oh no,
You
I'm a good
you
interrupter.
go. No, you go.
Oh,
Go for it.
I was just gonna say, so moving forward, just as far as that goes, of course, like I said earlier, all I wanted was to get married and have kids. Didn't have a
Yeah.
boyfriend, didn't get asked to dances in high school. But now that I look back, it's like, okay, that anxiety, that insecurity, I don't want to say turn off because that sounds brutal, but it's just like, how do you deal with somebody like that? I mean, I was normal. It's just I really, 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 really hate the line where if you don't love yourself, nobody else can love you because it's kind of a like backhanded. I don't know. I'm like, oh, well, great. Well, I don't really like myself right now, so
Yeah.
I guess I'm doomed, you know. But I guess it's just bottom line is like trauma is real and grief is real. And if it's not addressed, if you don't know what it is, you can't put it in its place. So the other side of you shines. So like people would ask me, they're like, you're not ugly, you're nice, but there's something off. So even they could kind of pick up on what it was. Um, but I mean, I had friends. But I was my own worst enemy. And so, I remember there were even guys in high school that are like, "You're pretty. What's wrong? Why aren't you smiling?" Or, because I was insecure. And then, fast forward to when I was 17 years old. Ooh, this is going to get really deep. It's deep in my head, but it hasn't. Anyway. So I was 17 years old, and my best friend lived in Washington, D.C. I was out west. She was in Washington, D.C. She lived out west, and then she moved. And my dad was from D.C., and that's where he was buried. And of course, like my mom and my stepdad, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She had me and my brother and then five more boys. So it's not like we could afford to, oh, let's go see daddy's grave, or let's go see Alicia and Bert's dad's
Yeah.
grave. And so I went out there, and growing up, like I think validation is probably one of my biggest soapboxes. Growing up, um, I told myself that because I didn't have many memories of my dad, I wasn't allowed to miss him. Like I'd start to feel things that maybe I started to recognize as grief, but I'm like, no, I don't remember the knock at the door. I don't remember him.
Yeah.
I can't love him. I can't miss him. And yet the feelings were there. And anyway, I was getting ready to go visit his grave and everything. Or no, 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 no. I was in DC and I was with his brother, my uncle. And he's like, "Oh, there's Arlington. Let's go there." I'm like, "Uh, okay." Because I was worried that I was going to be
Yeah.
disrespectful in front of my uncle by just staring at my dad's grave like a deer in the headlights. And it was so cool because I get out of the car and I see my dad's name in stone, and it just hit me. Like he was real. And I can't tell the story without crying. But
It's all
like
right.
he was all of a sudden, like it was the most beautiful pain I'd ever felt in my life, where it's like, this is my daddy, and I do miss him, and it was so cool. That sounds really funny, but anyway, so I had that experience, and then I ended up staying with my best friend after that for a couple of weeks, and we were um there. I was there on Father's Day. Now, my grandpa's buried in Arlington too. He died 4 years after my dad did. And anyway, rewind a little bit, but my mom got remarried before she got remarried, I had a dream where it was my mom and my brother and me, and my dad, and we were walking home from church, the church where my mom was living with we were living with my grandparents after my dad died. And we were walking home from their church, and they were singing this song. It was a church song, and that was it. I was wearing this little purple and green dress that my mom made for me when I was 4 years old. That was it. And so when my mom got remarried, and my dad's picture was down, I stopped talking about my dad. I'm like, okay, subconsciously, we're not allowed to talk about him. And of course, subconsciously, half of who I am doesn't matter. So that just kind of fed the monster. Um, so anyway, when I was
Yeah.
11 years old, my mom or my stepdad and my brothers, they went somewhere, and I was talking to my mom, and somehow my dad came up, and I opened up a little bit more. I mean, it had been like 5, 6 years since I talked about my dad, and I opened up a little bit more, and I finally told her about that dream, and her eyes are all wide, and she's like, "Well, you know the significance of that song, don't you?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Well, it was the opening hymn to his funeral, and it was his favorite song in the world." And then she
Oh,
proceeds to bring down his back box of things, his dog tags, military things, my christening dress, and the last birthday present he gave me, and then that purple and green dress. She's like, "I didn't know I kept this." And it was just what it told me is like, my dad's still here. He's still aware of me. And so the reason I bring up that song is the main part of my story is how I felt my dad around, how I felt his presence. And some people will be like, "That's just your
yeah.
imagination." That's fine. If they think it's my imagination or DNA or whatever, that's fine. But to me, there is nothing more real. I have had experiences that cannot be explained any other way than it was my dad right there telling me that he is there. And I mean, I fully believe in guardian angels, especially with these experiences that I've had. One thing I will say is I'm not telling people you have to believe this. I'm telling you this is real. This is
Your
my truth.
story.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I want others to be able to access that if they want it, because it is anyway. So I had that experience where, she told me about that, and then anytime I'd hear that song at church, I'd feel this little warm fuzzy, like that's daddy, daddy's around. Or there's another Kenny Loggins' Pooh Corner. I don't know if you know that song. So
Footloose is all we know here.
oh, Pooh Corner, it was one of his first ones, come to find out. I researched Kenny Loggins later. But
Yeah.
no, Pooh Corner is a very sweet song. And my dad sang it to me. He played his guitar and sang it to me when I was little. I don't remember it, but I'd hear
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
song and I'm like, Daddy, it was just it's instant daddy kind of feeling.
Mhm.
And so that was another one. Anyway, I went all the way back there to go back to when I was 17, and it was Father's Day. So we go to church with my friend. She's the same faith as I am, and didn't even think about going to my dad's grave. Didn't even consider it. And then all of a sudden, what do they sing? My dad's funeral song. And I looked at her, I'm like, can we
Cool.
please go to Arlington? And she's
Yeah.
like, absolutely. And excuse me. And again, same thing. I got out of the car. It was raining. It was beautiful. And he's like, I'm here. Alicia, I want you to know that I'm here. And I was kind of tried to chase it out. And it's just like, you need to listen. I'm here. Um, and so that kind of opened the door to a few like songs would come up, or else I'd have these thoughts come to my head where, some people will be like, well, that's the Holy Spirit, or that's Jesus, or that's the universe talking to you. It's not your dad, and I'm like, but his voice is very distinct. Um, One thing that it's kind of funny, I was goody two shoes, little squeaky clean, and I thought I was undateable. I thought that was why. And I remember when I was like, um, I think I was in my 30s. So, um, actually, let's rewind. Is there anything? I know I'm bouncing all over the place. Do you want me just to keep going?
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
You keep
So,
going. You keep
okay.
going.
Okay. So, um, we've got this spiritual foundation, this connection, um, and which is a positive and a negative thing. It's kind of like, how do you, people didn't understand that for sure. I mean, they don't understand losing a father to murder. They definitely don't understand hearing him talk to you. You were completely batshit crazy, excuse my language, but still. Um, so I always wondered what was wrong with me, why I wasn't dating. I ended up getting scouted to model when I was 25, but still thought I was ugly, all that good fun stuff that, women like to beat ourselves up. Um, and then I went out with this guy. So actually, I met this guy through a friend of mine, a mutual friend, and I was really impressed with him. His mom had passed away a couple months before, and he reached out to me on Valentine's Day. It was a couple weeks later. It was right after I turned 30. And I was just like, oh. And we talked on the phone. He asked me out. We went out, and I'd had friends tell me, because by that point, it's like my dad was so real to me that it was an easy conversation to bring up. Or, well, of course, people are like, so tell me about your family. Oh, well, my mom
Of
and my
course.
stepdad. Okay, well, what happened to your dad? He was murdered. Okay. I guess I didn't have to say that, but anyway. Um, but I tried to kind of keep it, tone things down. And so anyway, I was talking to this guy, and he's like, he just barely lost his mom. And I'm like, well, yeah, my dad died too, but I was so little, it hasn't impacted me at all. And I'm not sad. So, but your mom just died of cancer. He's just like, are you kidding me? He's like, I have memories to fall back on. You don't even have that. He's like, you have every right to miss your dad. And as sad as it
Of
is,
course.
having that validation, I took that validation and I ran with it. And I took that permission and I ran with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not only,
Of
oh, go
course.
ahead. So not only
No, of
that, but
course.
that,
So what I was going to say with the loss there, I mean, as a therapist that works in bereavement,
mhm,
you can't not have a loss because just as as a therapist, the most important time in a child's life is the first 7 years. And then it's the second 7 years, up to the age of 14. Your parents are everything. The first 3 years is the attachment years. And it doesn't matter how amazing one parent is, they can't compensate for the other parent. So if you've lost your dad at the age that you did, it's going to be a massive loss and void, and you are going to feel all the things, everything you went through, which you didn't realize at the time and didn't understand it, is totally natural. It would be bizarre if you weren't going through that. I'd be thinking there's blocked out or denials to go through everything you've been through. Yeah, is 100% natural, which you obviously know that now there as well, which probably makes a big difference to your life there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I've never heard people say the first 3 years are attachment. Like even with all the research, I heard that the first 7 years were important. I'm like, oh, stepdad. Oh, okay. He's wonderful. But yeah, no, that's very validating. The word of the day is validation. No, just kidding. But it's, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
and to hear information that you go, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, no. So yeah, no, the attachment is just so important. It can shape a person's life forever in those early
mhm,
stages. That's why, as you know, childhood is so important. As a therapist, when I've got people coming to me, my brain is all automatically wanting to go straight to the childhood, just the default setting. Obviously, I don't, but nearly 90% of the time, you're going to go back to the childhood because that's how fragile we are, how we form a lot of our belief systems. If we do go through certain traumatic things or losses there, it's going to affect us. It's never, it might do, it will do. And it's about recognizing that and then obviously dealing with it. You knew something wasn't right, but you didn't know why. You thought it was normal. You normalized it. And it's not until years later we go, I've got to do something here.
yeah, exactly. Well, and I love how you say that too. I mean, one thing that I've learned is trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter what traumatized you as a young child, that is going to it seems like, I don't know if you've noticed in your practice, but it seems like children, people or adults who were traumatized as children, do they have similar personality traits? Or similar, do they have similar negative things that happen, like people pleasing and
Yeah, yeah. If you I mean, there's always going to be a variation, but from my experience, if you've got like 100 people that went through the same set of trauma, like for like, give or take, the vast majority is going to come out with the same traits. That's my own experience. That's why with my clients, I know from my own trauma, and obviously not just what I've studied and and um, learned over the year, waiting from at the end of the sentence. And it gives them a lot of reassurance because sometimes I say, "Oh, when that happened, did you feel this?" And they're like, "Oh my God, it's like you were there. How do you know this?" Well, I know if you go through these set of circumstances, your brain's going to work in particular direction to protect you, and this is probably how it's going to affect you and how you're going to show it. That's it. So, and if you with like a child's mind, if they lose a parent, they will always come to the conclusion that they're not good enough. Otherwise, my dad would be here. Even under the circumstances you've been through, your brain will figure out that it must be my fault somehow. I'm not good enough. And then the only way to be good enough is to be perfect. And you're just trying to reach for unrealistic goals. And if you're people pleasing, nobody's going to leave. So you say yes, you don't have any boundaries, and on you
when they
go.
get
And
abused
that is
and
just such a common trait. And it's
wow.
take advantage of because there's no consequences. So if you got this is why people that have been through like a big loss, or an abusive, unloving childhood, and they're people pleaser, they don't tend to have boundaries for the love that they never got, the inner child. And if you've got somebody that is kind of abusive, they know that they can abuse that person because the person doesn't have boundaries. They don't want to be abandoned, so they actually still stay there and live in that abuse.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's which is frustrating, but you can see how the pattern forms.
yeah. And it's crazy how it stays too, because it's just I am very, very grateful. Like, you know what, I'm going to attribute it to guardian angels, God's timing, everything like that. and I'm going to bring in the things that happen for a reason here. I am very grateful that I did not, I mean, I'm sad that I don't have children, but I'm very grateful that the guys that I thought that I wanted to marry, I didn't. And like something happened. Things kind of fell, thank goodness, because they were abusive. My husband is wonderful. Like, I think my mom likes him more than she likes me. No, she doesn't. But he's wonderful.
Yeah.
He's kind. He's understanding. Um, yeah, I mean, I had to
Yeah.
wait a really long time, but I'm not saying that's the end all either. I mean, it's back to when I met that guy who validated my grief. He then said, because he'd asked, he's like, okay, so let's get into the true crime part of this, which people are like, wow, are you kidding me? But he's like, what happened to your dad? I'm like, well, he was a narcotics officer in the Navy who was killed by one of his own men who pled insanity and got away with it at the end. He's like, and? I mean, this is a 30-year-old saying this, and I'm like, that's all? And he's like, where's the guy? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, I'm like, it's the Navy, so of course I'm sure that he's somewhere. I'm sure they're keeping tabs of him. No, 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 no. But so I started digging, and that's where my book, Angel in Arlington, that's kind of where that picks up. And I started like the unlikely courage is you can't have unlikely courage unless you've experienced trauma. And so the unlikely courage is facing the two things that scared me the most, the US Navy, because I did not like them. They took my dad, and my dad's killer. And I had this
Yeah.
irrational fear growing up that he was on the loose. Fast forward, I was 41. I found out that he had been the whole time. I mean, spoiler alert, I'm allowed to share this. We did track down my dad's killer. He was at large almost the entire time. My co-author actually had a conversation with him, got it out of him. Yeah, I did it. I did it on purpose. So there's a little, I'll leave that there. But um, it's, you know,
Yeah. Tell me
huh?
a little bit about that. Crazy.
Um, I hate to be that person who says I can't really go into that, but that was one of the most empowering and scary experiences of my life was when we knew that we needed to get his side of the story, and there was only one way to do
Right.
it. And so we did, and he had his own demons, and of course, we didn't know if he was dangerous. We didn't know what was going on. And so, but
Were
I
you
can tell
face to face to him?
I was not. I was not. It was my co-author was. She was too protective of me. Which was probably smart. I
Right.
mean, you don't know. We didn't know if he was mentally ill. I mean, I, he could have reached out to us. He knew that he killed my dad. Like, we didn't know anything about him. And so, my co-author's the one who ended up meeting him. And I hate to say I can't give anything else away, but I really can't go into detail, but it was healing. One question is people are like, is he alive? No, he is not. I do know that he has passed away. Um, but there was just so much cover up and so much people. It's funny
In the
because it's not
Navy.
in the, of course, yeah, in the Navy. It was in the Navy. They told my family that it was homicide. And then I reached out to them and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Where's my dad's killer? What's going on? This was early on. This is when I was 30, when I started to do my digging, like, okay, what really happened to my dad? Why was there not anything more about his killer and where his killer is? I mean, that was a legitimate fear. Come to find out, not just for me, but for my family, but they didn't obsess over it, but I guess I had time on my hands or something. But um so I started to do a lot of digging. I reached out to the Navy and they stonewalled me like nobody's business. Sorry, can't say anything. Sorry. And it's funny because now I'll talk to people who are in the military or military families or my TAPS friends, and I'll be like, oh, yeah, they wouldn't tell me anything. And they're like, you're surprised why? Like, welcome to the military,
Yeah.
It's, and I don't want to like totally villainize them because I am grateful for our armed services. I'm grateful. There needs to be a level of I don't want to say secrecy, but confidentiality. They need to protect, they need to protect the greater good, but in my opinion, they take it too far. You've got a 40-year-old case, let that poor grieving daughter, let that family be at peace. And I mean, like, this isn't taking any spoilers from my dad's the book away, but it's like maybe the family deserves to know if the killer is loose. Just saying, you know, I
I
mean,
think
it's
it's
just,
minimum requirement. Just
yeah,
minimum
like tell the
requirement.
family, where is he at? Where, you know, my brother has my dad's face. My brother has my dad's name. You know, it's kind of like, let us protect ourselves at least. A little bit of rage going on
Yeah.
there, you know. But I did along the way, I did find
Not
some wonderful
surprised.
people. Huh? Oh, sorry. Oh, you are surprised? Is that what you said?
Not surprised that there's anger there. I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
surprised that there's anger there. I think anyone would have anger there.
Yeah. But it was kind of amazing because there were, again, I can tell you, I did get my answers. Um, I did come to peace. And so that was one thing that was huge. And
Yeah.
along the way, I met my dad's friends who were like, you know, they're like family to me now, and they were still grieving. So it was just kind of like things happen for a reason. People probably want to punch me by now, but I see a bigger picture to it. You know, I mean, I'm very grateful. I've been blessed. I mean, do I like the anxiety? No, I don't know of anybody who does, but it's kind of like, what do I get to do with that now? Um, I've I've written this book.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of the book. I've been able to, like you said, you talk to little kids. I've been able to talk to my friends' kids, and I'm like, you're feeling this and this and this, right? And they're like, uh-huh. You know, like, how do you know? I'm like, you're normal. And so I'm just able to share my
Yeah.
story to be like, you can still live a normal life. If you're afraid, if you think that there's going to be an active shooter on the train, then what I do, if I know I have to take the train somewhere, I go and I find the place where they have the bikes where I can hide and there aren't as many people because a killer doesn't want to kill just two people, they want to kill 30. You know, I mean, unfortunately, that's where my mind will go. But it's like, but knowing that I'm like, okay, this is my anxiety. What can I do to still do what I want to do, to still, you know, get to that place and to still do that thing without letting my anxiety make me crazy? It's like, okay, well, I'm going to find ways to protect myself because even though it's irrational, it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'll
it's,
get that. How do you feel now, knowing and the work you've put into yourself and you understand so much more? How different is your life? Because when you got trauma, you can live with it. You have to live with it. You have to manage it and deal with it. So now you've learned so many different tools and strategies. How do you find your life now compared to what it was before when you didn't have any answers?
I think I'm kind of more of like my real personality comes out more. I feel
Yeah,
like, you know, I'm able to let go, have fun for the most part. I mean, I've still got, okay, still uptight a little bit, but at the same time, it's very empowering. It is very empowering to know what caused it, and also to know that like the answer is
yeah,
no if you don't ask, and that there are people who genuinely do want to help you out. You just need to keep asking until you find the person who's there. I mean, be reasonable, you know, don't, I don't know, people could take that and run with it, but like I wanted to know what happened to my dad. I wanted to understand, you know, just keep asking. And it's just to answer your question, it's very empowered and very, I want to help other people. So,
yeah. How have you found writing the book? You've been doing it a long time there. Did you find you got because I've spoken to many authors that have had like loss or trauma, and they've got so much out of it just by writing it. It's really helped them
mhm.
to process it. Is that the same for yourself?
Oh yeah, like I've always been a good writer, but like writing my story for other people, I'm like, that's what was going on. That's what my uncle was thinking. Oh my gosh. And it's just kind of seeing it as like taking yourself out of the situation and being able to see it from an outside perspective is that was incredibly cathartic. People like to throw that word around, but very healing. Like I learned more about my life writing it out than I did living it. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And tell us a little bit about your book then, because at the moment it's is it nearly completed? Is it just waiting to be
it's
published?
done. We're trying to, we're looking for an
It's
agent or
done.
a publisher. Yeah, it's been done for a couple years. So that's the challenge with media and things like that. We're looking for a solid agent. We're looking for a publisher who, I mean, I don't have a huge following. I'm working on that. I have a full-time job. I'm not trying to make excuses, but it's just kind of like, you know how social media is. But I do have a lot of really, really amazing connections that I can reach out to once I have a deal or once I have something solid to be like, here, I've got this. So we're hoping, we're looking at publishers right now. We're shopping for an agent, and that's where we're at now. And I'm continuing to kind of, while I'm able to build my platform a little bit more and being on podcasts and being like, hey, look. And it's interesting because the more I'm on podcasts, the more
Yeah.
I'm like, people need this. I feel like I've
Yeah.
got something that is valuable. So,
There's so much in your story, and it'd be great when you finally get it published and released, because there's so much there. You've got a loss. I mean, having any loss at any time of anyone close to you, but when it's one that's just so unjust, one that shouldn't have happened,
mhm.
you can almost say it was a car accident. It's a terrible thing, but these things happen there. But the circumstances of losing your father, it just shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened to you at any age, let alone 2 years of age there as well. And then to have all these unresolved wounds and trauma that you're carrying through your life, going undiagnosed, and you're kind of going, well, was this life? Was it just me? All these unanswered, and the difference it's made to your life, and then you've discovered what the causes are. You've learned how to deal with it and manage it, and then you've gone and faced seeing your dad at Arlington there, and you've gone on there as well. There's just so much there, and the whole point of having my podcast, like I said, off there, is that my clients, where somebody's been through adversity they can relate to, and so many people will be able to relate to your story. It might not be exactly the same, but they're going to be able to relate to how you feel, what the things that you've gone through in your life, and also they want to feel inspired, by which they will do with the strength you've shown to overcome and keep working. It's not like I'm over it now and that's it. You know that you've got to keep working on it for the rest of your life. You've got to stay on top of things. You've got to recognize your truth. There's so much there, and to do that
Thank
takes
you.
strength, and you've got so much of that. And you're looking to help people along the way as well. So it's such a great achievement that you've done there as well. So I think that's brilliant.
Thank you. I'm very honored by your compliments, but yeah, that's what I'm wanting. I appreciate you the validation. Back to the word of the day. No, just kidding. But no, it's I don't know. Thank you. We're working on it. There is, it's funny. A lot of these podcasts, I love the direction that this has gone, but they're usually like, okay, like, very heavy on the spiritual aspect, but I love the psychological too. It really, yeah.
I think it's good with when you're doing different podcasts, because then you can tell your story, and you get it to say it in different ways. So it's
Mhm.
not the same story on like for like on every podcast, which I
Yeah.
find when I'm listening to a specific podcast. There's a story I've got like a at the moment. I'm listening to an author, and I just want to hear the same story that he's telling. But on some of them, it's kind of like for like other times, there's a bit of a variation. Oh, there's something a bit more there. So if you can say
Mhm.
your story and you're coming from a different perspective, then that can really broaden the people listening to it there as well, and they get a different aspect of your story there as well. So I'm glad that's helpful, and it's a different one to you. Alicia, your story's been such an inspiring story. I admire your strength and courage, and I endlessly appreciate you coming on the podcast today, and I really wish you the best of luck with the book.
Thank you.
Once it's published, then it comes out there as well. So come back on in the future. It'd be great.
I would love to. Please stay in touch. I would be honored. Thank you. This is, I'm talking to my co-author later today to find out we've been getting rejections. So we're gonna find out what the next one was. But yeah, I'll stay in contact. I would love to, because it really, and I love what you're doing too, because you're helping people find what's going to help them too. So anyway,
Yeah.